The escape pod's restraints cut into his shoulders as the drop bay doors open onto a sky the color of a bruise. And the last thing Fleet Command tells Doran Ash is that this is a mercy. It isn't. He knows that. Everyone in the bay knows that. Class Zero drops don't get rescue beacons. They get a number, a one-way pod, and a world registry has already marked declassified. Atmosphere non-viable. 6 weeks ago, he was senior survey pilot Doran Ash, the man who mapped more dead systems than anyone in the Deep Range Division. 4 weeks ago, the Meridian 8S reactor containment failed on a routine survey run, and Commander Varen Hale filed a report before Doran had even finished the post-incident scan. The report named pilot error. It named Doran. It did not name the fact that Hale had quietly resubmitted Doran's own survey data under his own signature 3 days earlier, or that the woman Doran had been engaged to, systems engineer Lystorin, had already been reassigned to Hale's command before the ink on the report was dry. 2 weeks ago, they burned his license. Yesterday, they stamped his file Class 0, non-essential, and that was the whole trial. The pod door doesn't open so much as it gives up. Doran steps out on a rock the color of dried rust, under a sky thick with sulfur haze, and the readout on his wrist unit blinks red before it even finishes booting. Atmosphere, 31% viable. Radiation, elevated. No rescue protocol on file. He doesn't sit down and grieve it. Grieving is a luxury for people with somewhere to go back to. He starts walking because the alternative is waiting to die where he landed, and Doran Ash has never once in his life waited for anything to happen to him. He walked for 6 hours before the ground changes. Rust cracking into black glass, smooth and seamless, like something had melted the whole hillside into a single sheet and let it cool for 10,000 years. He walks for 6 more before he finds a crack in it. A doorway, sealed, alien, humming so faintly he feels it in his teeth before he hears it. His wrist unit can't read it. No registry tag, no fleet catalog number, nothing. Which means no one has ever logged this. Which means, by the only law that's mattered to him in a month, it doesn't officially exist. He presses his palm to the seam anyway, because he has nothing left to lose by trying. The black glass doesn't scan his palm. It scans him, and something underneath the surface of the world responds with a pulse he feels travel up through his boots, his spine, the back of his skull. Mandate recognition. Subject unregistered. No active fleet claim detected. Condition met. Unclaimed steward. Activating. Steward sovereign. The door doesn't open. It was never a door. It's a transmitter, and what it's transmitting is him into a network that's been waiting under this dead world for longer than Fleet has had a flag. He doesn't understand it yet. He understands one thing only, that being erased from every registry on a fleet ship is, for the first time in his life, the reason something finally chose him instead of throwing him away. The rise doesn't come as a flash of light or a god-tier weapon. It comes as a map. A new readout bleeds across his wrist unit, layered over the old fleet interface like ink soaking through paper. A full sub-layer scan of the planet, water tables, mineral veins, biomass pockets, 17 more black glass spires scattered across the hemisphere like buried teeth. And a single counter, sitting at 0. Claim tokens, 0/1000. Sovereign charter locked. He doesn't know what a sovereign charter is. He knows what 0 feels like, intimately, and he knows the only way that number has ever moved for him in his life is work. So he works. The first dome takes him 11 days. A half-buried atmospheric processor he has to dig out by hand, then coax back online using power cells scavenged from his dead pod. The processor doesn't fix the sky. It fixes 100 meters of it, a bubble of breathable air around a single black spire. And the moment the seal locks, the counter ticks for the first time. Claim token plus 40, Stabilization Act, atmospheric seed. 40 out of 1,000. He laughs, alone, for the first time in a month, because 40 is 40 more than the 0 fleet gave him. He doesn't get lucky again after that. He gets systematic. Every spire he reaches, he learns its function before he touches it. Water reclamation here, soil synthesis there, one that does nothing but read structural stress across the whole crust and warn him 3 days before a quake. He learns the mandate has limits. It draws on what the planet actually has, not infinite free power, and a stabilization act he rushes without preparation fails outright once. Costs him 2 days and most of his remaining rations relearning it properly. The rise isn't a cheat code. It's a job, and it pays him in honest, earned numbers. The first warning the seismic spire gives him, he almost misses, a flicker on his wrist unit easy to mistake for static, gone before he can log it. He doesn't make that mistake twice. He sets a standing watch on that single channel after that, even when there's nothing on it for 9 straight days, because the mandate has already taught him the one rule that matters here. It will tell him the truth about this world, but it will never repeat itself for his convenience. On the 10th day, the channel screams. 3 days later, the ground east of Dome 4 buckles exactly where the spire told him it would. And because he spent those 3 days reinforcing the dome's foundation instead of chasing a 10th claim token, the dome holds while half a kilometer of crust around it doesn't. He stands at the new fault line afterward, breathing hard, hands raw, and understands something he'll carry the rest of the way. The system can warn him. It can't survive the warning for him. That part stays his. By day 30, there are 3 domes and 420 tokens, and the first signal hits his receiver that isn't his own, a drifting beacon from another Class 0 pod, dropped on the far side of the same world 6 months before him. The colonist inside it half-starved but alive. Doran walks 2 days to bring her in. Her name is Run Kala, a former dock administrator whose only crime was turning 50 without a transfer slot open. She is not the last beacon he finds. By day 60, there are 9 domes linked by sealed transit tunnels, 610 tokens, and 31 people living inside Air Doran, built with his own hands out of world fleet declared dead on a form nobody read twice. Claim token plus 30, Stabilization Act, Soil Synthesis, Sector 7. Claim tokens, 610/1000. Provisional Settlement Charter unlocked. The Provisional Charter does something Doran doesn't expect. It registers the world, formally, under a name he chooses without thinking twice. Isher's Rest, not a fleet designation. A name people who live somewhere give to the place they live. Back along the supply lanes he'll never see, the picture looks different. Fleet's central colonies have been running on claims filed faster than they could be verified for years. Worlds logged as viable that never were, resources promised to ration boards that never arrive. 3 core systems go to emergency rationing in the same season. Doran links his 9th dome. Nobody back there is thinking about a Class 0 exile. Nobody back there is thinking about Isher's Rest at all. Encore World Vantarii. Ration boards cut civilian water allotments twice in 1 month, and a transit strike over the second cut leaves 400 fleet dependents stranded in a sealed concourse for 2 days under emergency lighting, breathing recycled air that smells like every other lungful that came before it. None of them have ever heard the name Doran Ash. None of them will for a while yet. But the same season, they're queuing in that concourse. 41 domes 100 light years out are venting fresh oxygen into a sky that used to kill anything that breathed it. Growing food and soilless survey ship once logged as sterile. And nobody back home has the faintest idea the surplus exists, because nobody back home ever checks what happens to the world they write off. Until Commander Varen Hale needs a win. His promotion stalled the moment fleet auditors started asking why the Meridian 8 survey data he'd resubmitted under his own name didn't match newer scans. He needs a discovery. A resource world registered clean, with his name on the charter before anyone checks too closely. He pulls the original Meridian 8 files, Doran's files, his actual readings, never properly erased, and finds a single world flagged unsurvivable that the old data says shouldn't be. He doesn't recognize the coordinates as a Class 0 drop site. Why would he? Nobody files those. He requisitions the charter vessel Solace, 3 months fuel, a skeleton crew, and Lys Torrent as lead systems engineer because she knows the old survey instruments better than anyone left in the division. She doesn't ask whose data it originally was. She doesn't think to. Day 90 on Isher's Rest. The counter on Doran's wrist crosses the line he's been building toward for 3 months without ever being sure it was real. Claim tokens 1000/1000. Sovereign charter override active. Any external claim filed against an active steward sovereign automatically subordinates to steward authority under frontier settlement law. Article 4. Status: unclaimed steward, above charter, the wayfarer. He's still reading the third line when the solace breaks atmosphere. Hale doesn't even bring weapons-ready protocol. Why would he? For an empty rock. What his sensors find instead, the moment they clear the haze layer, is 41 domes lit gold against a thinning sulfur sky, breathable air spreading in a slow green stain across half a hemisphere, and a settlement transponder broadcasting a charter ID that predates his own filing by 61 days. His own claim form, the instant it registers against an active steward sovereign, doesn't get rejected. It gets absorbed. Every resource right he listed routed automatically into Escher's Rest's own ledger. His vessel's docking rights converted to guest status under someone else's authority. His name stripped from the header and replaced with a single line. Subordinate claim, Steward D. Ash. His crew chief reads the override twice before she says anything out loud. Because the alternative is admitting that the Solace just burned 3 months fuel sailing into someone else's territory. Sir, she says carefully, frontier law doesn't let us contest an active steward charter. Not without Admiralty override. Hale doesn't answer her directly. He's already routing the request up the chain, and the answer comes back faster than he expects. Not a refusal, but a question of its own, flagged urgent straight from Fleet Central. Who is D. Ash, and why does his charter predate ours by 61 days? Hale doesn't have an answer that won't end his career either way. Hale is still staring at that line when Doran walks out to meet the landing ramp. In a flight suit gone silver gray from radiation and 90 days of sun, calm in a way that makes Hale's hand twitch toward a sidearm he knows he can't use. Not here, not under frontier law, with a fleet auditor flag already pinging on the Solace zone systems, because somebody back home finally cross-checked the Meridian 8 files. You're supposed to be dead, Hale says, because it's the only true thing he has left. I was supposed to be a lot of things, Doran says. Lice comes down the ramp behind him, sees the domes, sees the children of 2 other exile colonists running a transit tunnel that didn't exist when she filed Doran's reactor report without reading it twice, and says his name like it costs her something. He lets her say it. He doesn't walk toward her. 3 weeks later, the core system's rationing crisis hits its breaking point, and the only world in the sector with a surplus, clean water, stable soil, an atmosphere expanding faster than its own colonists can fill it, is the one fleet's own registry still technically lists as unsurvivable. The Admiralty sends a formal request, not an order. A request because Doran Ash is, as of Article 4, the only steward sovereign on record, and stewards cannot be ordered. Hale is reassigned to dock administration on a half-evacuated core world, his rank quietly downgraded, his name attached to the file Doran's own legal counsel. A Class 0 exile turned full citizen named Run Kala, who learned charter law out of necessity in 90 days flat, submits to the fleet auditors without a single word added that isn't already true. The Admiral who signed Doran's exile order arrives in person to negotiate resettlement terms for 4,000 refugees from the failing core. He stands at the edge of Dome 1, hat in hand, and asks Doran what he wants in exchange. Doran looked past him at the green spreading slowly across a world that was supposed to kill him in under a week. Just stop calling people Class 0, he says. That's all. That's the whole price. The Admiral signs it the same afternoon. The first thing the new charter overwrites isn't a resource clause. It's a designation, erased from every registry in the sector at once. The way Doran's own name once was, except this time on purpose, and for good. Status update. Classification. Class 0 revoked, sector-wide. Steward D. Ash. Above charter, the wayfarer. He doesn't read the message twice. He's already walking back toward Dome 9, where Rune is waiting with the day's stabilization reports, and a world that once had nothing on it now has, for the first time, somewhere worth coming home to.